Alright, thank you for joining me on this video where we are going to be breaking down the Shadow Collective. Now, before we get started, I want to thank everyone who watched my previous video, the breakdown of all of the Star Wars Legion factions, all of the outpouring of support on that video. Thank you so much for making that video as successful as it is right now. The Shadow Collective is a Battle Force faction in the game Star Wars Legion. They are a mercenary faction that represent the forces of Darth Maul and his gathered crime syndicates. They have a pair of very strong heroes in Maul and Saxon, strong synergies with each other, good command cards. And I will be breaking down the Bounty Hunter operatives in their own video, as I would rather do them all at once because they can be taken in multiple factions, and limiting them to something focusing only on the Shadow Collective does not seem right. Now we're going to go over some of the shared rules the units in this battle force have. Almost all units have independent, which gives them free token generation at the start of the turn if you don't issue an order to them. This is the big strength of this faction, and it lets them stand up to other factions. The Capo and Black Sun Vigo can heavily buff their requisite Pikes or Black Sun, and the Mandalorians have really good synergies with both Gar Saxon and Darth Maul. We are going to start with the command card breakdown. Now, the command card is how we figure out priority for turns in Star Wars Legion. And it also is what gives you like faction or army-wide buffs in your army that make them a little different. Now, these are the generic mercenary command cards, and they are perfectly fine. Ploy is a good 1-pip that will let you selectively activate a unit, but still grant them that independent token generation. Aggression synergizes well with token generation, giving you even more aim token generation if you decide that's the way you want to go. Discretion lets you choose to make some units even more survivable, to let them keep a point or keep an objective with some safety. Now we are getting into the Commander's command cards. This is Maul's list. He has 6 command cards, 3 of which are operative, 3 of which are commander. Now, according to rules and my research, you can use either or. He also automatically wins ties with the Darksaber upgrade that turns him from an operative into a commander. So starting out with these ones, Witch Magic can be a must-take, as it heavily increases Maul's survivability by healing him 2 wounds, and it also allows him to recover, which will renew any force powers he has that normally have to be tapped. His Eminence, when played while aggressively advancing Maul, can cause a mass shutdown in your enemy trooper ranks, and it allows you to ignore the suppression penalties for your troopers, which is giant, especially when going against an Imperial suppression gun line. Seize what power we can be a game changer. Having access to so much token generation can swing games right back onto you, especially if you have Maul aggressively moving towards something, or in a position where the enemy wants to spend tokens to kill him, but they can't anymore. Maul's operative command cards are interesting, and some of them are a pretty good bonus. We have Duel of the Fates, which is a 1-pip. It allows Maul to gain 1 dodge token and stop enemy units from disengaging, and using any tokens they have. This is a really good card if you want to kill an enemy hero or vehicle very badly and you don't want them to be able to do anything about it. The Phantom Menace is a very situational card. It can be useful to throw out turn 1 and keep Maul alive, but the Mercenary 2-pip gives access to better token generation that can be used for the Shadow Collective slightly better than this one. At Last is a good card to play if you want to bring 3 1-pips and get priority for almost the entire game. It also lets him get a surge to crit against Force users, which is redundant as the Darksaber also grants this ability. Jedi Hunter does have other perks, but the main reason you would want it is unfortunately cancelled out if he is being ran as a commander. Gar Saxon's command cards exist exclusively to buff Mandalorian. They are all good, but in my opinion not as great as Darth Maul. However, considering Saxon is much cheaper than Maul, this ends up balancing itself out in what else you are able to bring. Marked for Elimination is a great way to clear an annoying operative or leader off the field, as you can use it to give 4 observation tokens which can be used a little bit like surge tokens, but only when you're targeting that enemy. Fight Another Day is a great way to make the Super Commandos even harder to kill, allowing them to spend dodge tokens to cancel crits. Victory or Death is a good way to make your Mandos hit even harder, and they keep that extra survivability as well. Now let's get into this unit breakdown. We are going to start with the commanders. Darth Maul is a very expensive yet solid choice for your commander. He will take up about a quarter of your points in an 800-point game. Now, if you're spending that much already, it is almost always worth it to spend the extra to get the Darksaber upgrade card to use him as a commander. It also gives him access to Cunning, which makes his command cards auto-win ties. It also has all black attack dice, making him more reliable and less swingy than the 4 red and 4 white. He needs to be treated as a 5 wound character due to wound 1 automatically happening, but wound 1 also activates Juyo Mastery, which allows you to take 3 actions instead of 2. His best force powers are Choke and Push, and his best upgrade card is Tenacity, as it increases attack as your wounds go down and you're starting with 1 wound down anyway. Saxon is a cheaper yet still effective leader. His Compel works well with low morale Pikes and Black Suns to keep them moving, even if you don't have a Capo or Vigo left on the field. Sharpshooter 1 lets him ignore 1 cover save, which is great in a lot of games, as most enemy units will always have at least cover 1, if the person is moving it correctly. Taking his Flamethrower and Personal Shield upgrades are a must. The Flamethrower can reliably erase a single enemy unit from the game, as long as it has more than 1 model in it. And the shield gives him a good level of survivability and access to almost wound regen. His rifle or rockets let him be more versatile but are not required, and having Surge to crit and defend means no matter what you roll, more times than not you are succeeding. The 2 generic choices for the Shadow Collection are the Pike Capo and the Black Sun Vigo. Going over the Capo first, he is not a bad choice. His aid token lets him buff the Pikes near him. Using his morale for the Pikes is the only way to give them courage too, but he does not have any unique command cards or upgrade cards. But it is better taking him as an individual rather than using a card, as a Capo can buff 2 units of Pikes, but if you use him as a card it only buffs the unit you buy him into. The Black Sun Vigo is almost exactly the same as the Pike Capo. He also buffs Black Sun Courage, and has the possibility of hitting a little bit harder with his 2 black and 2 white dice. Which, depending on how you view it, is good or bad. I like to trust the dice gods. Getting into the operatives, we are going to start with Bossk. Bossk is a solid operative choice for the price, and with all of his abilities he can wreak havoc among the other trooper or core units in your enemy's army. Bounty allows you to gain an extra victory point by marking and killing an enemy commander or operative. He is also a really good choice for someone who wants to bring more of a gun line instead of just running Maul and Saxon as your 2 main characters. He is really hard to kill due to getting Regenerate, and in Rage 3 lets him get a free melee action attack after moving if he has taken 3 wounds, which with his healing ability makes it really useful. Cad Bane feels like an odd choice, but he does a surprising good job at shooting and being mobile. He has the bounty keyword as well, so he gets those bonuses of getting an extra victory point. He has good staying power and more of a consistent punch than Bossk does. He can ignore most terrain by having Jump 1, and Danger Sense 3 does increase his survivability by a lot. If he did not have this, I would say take Bossk every time. But with this and his surges, and combined with getting independent dodge too and not giving him an order token, he can be really hard to take out. The Pike are your first core units. The Pikes are the current meta according to the lists I've read, because they are cheap and have dodge generation and can give you some more activations to support more elite units for the price. With the Capo nearby, Danger Sense 2 lets them roll 2 extra defense dice if they keep up their suppression. A Capo is the only way to get this unit to Courage 2. They cannot use Maul or Saxon's Courage. Their 2 unit upgrade cards that are unique to them give you a really decent melee option or a longer range, kind of okay anti-vehicle option, and you can take one or the other. So it does give some versatility in list building. The Black Suns act like a mercenary version of the Stormtroopers, but they hit a lot harder than the Pikes. Due to not being as cheap as the Pikes, they are not taken as often. However, unlike the Pikes, both of their upgrade cards are almost always worth taking if you're already spending the points for them. The Scattergun Enforcer mixes some red dice into your attack pool, and the Magdet Enforcer is a good upgrade card choice and gives you probably the most consistent anti-vehicle attacks, except for Maul, that this faction has. The Mandalorian Super Commandos are your first Special Forces unit. They are also probably the reason you want to take the Shadow Collective in the first place. they can be really hard to clear off a point if they have their shield upgrade. Now, the shield upgrade does not allow them to regen the shields, but having the first 2 saves you fail in a game where you can already get these guys a whole bunch of dodge tokens each turn, and they surge to defend on red dice is really good. They work best when properly upgraded, and building your army around taking 4 units of these can be a lot of fun. They can be built up as a close range, or a longer range zone control fight group, depending on which upgrade cards you want to buy. And Rook Cast is a must take whenever Mole is in the list, as she gives even more free token generation to this unit. But since they are 1 health, once they lose their shields, they become much more vulnerable, and after those shields get picked off, it doesn't take a ton of fire to focus these guys down, unfortunately. And now we have our support. We have one option here, our swoop bike riders. They are a really good choice wanting a mobile, flanking, fast-moving unit. Overrun 1 lets you make an attack by just passing over a unit. You can technically do 3 of the long-range movements, which can let you cross almost an entire board. They can be used to harass enemy flanks with great efficiency, and cover 1 and independent dodge mean you are auto-passing 2 saves a turn minimum. The only problem with these guys is, other than their melee, their ranged is a little iffy, and saving on whites means when something focuses down on them, it is really hard to keep them alive. And now our last item, the heavy support. It is the only vehicle Shadow Collective has access to. It is a good way to get your troopers to an objective and actually let them survive longer. It can be a good actual threat when upgraded with guns, and when properly upgraded, it can also heal dead models as well, which can be super useful for the Mandalorians. Now, there will be a more in-depth video about list building for the Shadow Collective, but after everything we've just learned, these are the basics you should probably think about. For our first list, I recommend Saxon, a Black Sun Vigo, 2 units of Black Suns with Mag Det, and 4 Mandalorians as upgraded as you can get. With the points left over, either bring in some Swoop Bike Riders, or a few more Pike Syndicates to fill out those activations and get to 8 or 9 activations if possible. Doing this can be a fun way to learn the army that isn't just meta chasing, and I think could be worth the time. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, leave a like, subscribe, and maybe leave a comment. If there's another war game you want covered like this, leave it in the comment as well. I'm planning on spreading my horizons a little and covering some Age of Sigmar, Battletech, along with a few other choice war games. Have a wonderful day all.